There is nothing wrong with your internet. Do not attempt to adjust your settings. We are controlling the podcast. We control the squealing and the screams. We can make your heart flutter, your eyes blur from tears, or sharpen your mind to crystal clarity. For the next hour, sit back. We are in control of what you hear. We repeat, there is nothing wrong with your settings. You are about to experience the awe and mystery known as the female mind. You are now entering the Fangirl Zone.
Things are only impossible until they are not. Welcome to the Captain's Chair, a Star Trek Picard podcast on the Fangirl Zone. I'm Chief Engineer Steve, and joining me on this mission into the unknown is...
And I'm Redshirt Dave. I'm actually giggling at my own nickname because I expect the worst when I say it. Tonight we'll be discussing Episode 3, Season 1 of Star Trek Picard.
Well, we got off into space a little sooner than I thought we might.
Me too. In fact, I was just making a note about that. Maybe that's why I was a little distracted. I was just thinking of Riker and his mate. And I thought, it seemed to me that, well, are they going back to Earth to see everyone? Because, in all the trailers, we see him go to the Riker household, for lack of a better name, and she's there with Troy. So then I thought, are they not on Earth?
Right.
And so when they take...
possible.
Yeah. I mean, it looks pretty...
Zed.
Yeah. I hadn't thought of it that way until just now. I was thinking of Troy and Riker. I'm like, well, did they go back to Earth? And he's leaving space. No, wait a minute. What if they're not?
Right.
Huh.
Yeah, I don't think they are going to be showing back up on Earth anytime soon. I mean, it sure doesn't seem that way.
Yeah, why?
Yeah. To get attacked by the giant again?
Yeah. So, I guess they're off planet.
Yeah,
I guess.
And speaking of Jonathan Frakes, we find out that he will be directing the next 2 episodes.
Good.
Yes.
So maybe he'll appear in then.
Yeah. So that will be interesting to see, seeing that we're kind of starting the second act of this season.
Yeah. I watched an episode of Hawaii Five-0 last night, and Chai McBride is on it. And last night he had written the episode, and he got all the juicy lines. What a coincidence. So I wonder if Jonathan Frakes will have the same approach, make sure the camera's on him, and he gets some good lines. He doesn't have a writing credit, but I bet they can't help but lean that way when you have the power.
Right. Yeah, it's very possible. All right, shall we get into Episode 3?
Episode 3, The End is the Beginning. Completely unaware of her special nature, Soji continues her work and captures the attention of the Borg Cube Research Project's executive director. After rehashing past events with a reluctant Raffi, Picard seeks others willing to join his search for Bruce Maddox, including pilot and former Starfleet officer Cristobal Rios.
Yeah, some kind of episode that we of course start in the past again.
Yeah, I was a little surprised to see Mars get hammered again. That was pretty well known.
Yes.
And established. So why again? Did you sense anything from that, or do they just want to make sure everyone's caught up?
That's a really good question. I guess they were trying to set up the scene we see afterwards to let us know that it actually happened shortly thereafter the attack.
Yeah, because we meet Raffi, and in the comic book, I should mention by IDW, the prequel to this series, Picard Countdown, she does call him JL a lot, and I can tell you the uniforms that they were wearing outside Starfleet are exactly the same as the uniforms that they wore in the comic book, although they seem to fit a little better in the comic book than they did on the TV. I looked at those uniforms, they're a little loose around the collar.
Right.
Oh, well, maybe it was a last-minute decision. It's like, maybe we should dress them up in the same as the comic book. I don't know.
Yeah, could be.
Could be.
Get to see some of the history between Jean-Luc and Raffi, who worked with him on the Romulan evacuation plan.
She's very enthusiastic, and it looked like she'd follow him into hell. Super excited. I don't know how many years they had together. They were aboard the Verity, as established in the comic book, which was going to be, I guess, like flagship to the rescue effort.
Right, you would think.
Yeah.
So, it is interesting to know that, they seem to have a pretty close relationship. Who else is able to call him JL?
Yeah, nobody.
And
not even his dog calls him that.
Yeah. And so how long were they on the Verity together? It's
And not exactly established in the comic either, although enough time to be casual with it. He was still Admiral. I don't know. She's like a super fan and an officer.
right.
She was number one for him.
So as you'd expect from Picard, he puts his career on the line to stand up for what he believes in, continuing to help the Romulans even after the attack on Mars. Worked out a really intricate plan where they're going to use mothballed ships and not decommission, but standby personnel and the synthetics. But Starfleet isn't having anything to do with it.
Yeah, my Vulcan ears pricked up a little bit on that too. We go on to learn about Rafi's suspicions. I mean, that came pretty quickly.
Yes, it did. And what's curious about it is Picard seems to dismiss it even though she says she has proof.
Yeah, not that he should have known that they would accept his resignation, but it seemed preordained, if not planned. They're ready for him and they absolute know is there. And with her suspicions, he was a little too forgiving of Starfleet.
Yes, he was.
Yeah, I smell a rat too. He can't get past the point to why would the Romulans attack their own rescue force.
Right. And
It doesn't make sense.
no,
but
it really doesn't. We've seen issues with Starfleet all through the series, and for him to be just so blind about it is a little surprising. But of course,
yeah,
with him putting in his resignation and them accepting it, Rafi gets the call
It's
from
like-
the CNC, and they
Yeah.
fire her butt.
yeah, all a part of the cover-up, I would say.
Oh, absolutely.
I can picture somebody at their desk saying he offered his resignation. They're like, good,
Yeah.
just as we had hoped.
Yes, absolutely.
Bye.
Absolutely. And let's make sure we get rid of Rafi as well and cut off her security clearance so she can't be digging anymore.
Yeah, and she really took that personally too. I mean, it's great to have a career, but she was in it heart and soul. It reminds me of the first episode. Everyone has careers. Okay, you're on Star Trek and you're out in space at Starfleet. What about those people that were working in the shipyard? Why?
Yeah.
I mean, just it's something to do because they don't get paid, right? There is no
Yeah.
money.
Oh, absolutely.
So why? As you're that tied to your job in the future, I can understand exploration and going into space. That's exciting, but working on a shipyard without getting paid, so to stave off boredom? What is the positive reinforcement, Steve?
A job well done.
Yeah.
Something you love.
Future sounds awesome. I'm going to have to think on that one.
Yeah. Well, let's get into what's going on the Reclamation Cube, Dave.
I love the camera zooms in. The music immediately becomes foreboding. And there's the inky darkness of space with the slight glitter of some green and that intricate cube. I'm like, so exciting.
Yeah, that was an amazing opening shot going through the cube like that. That was just fantastic.
And it has one of our favorite Borg, or X-Borg, XB, on it too.
Yes.
I think I should. When I watched it the first time, my wife was trying to read. Good luck to her. And I shout out, Hugh! Look, it's Hugh! And she looks up. Yep. Yeah, good old Hugh, though. I had read of something about his personal life. He was going through a few issues during the original recording of Star Trek The Next Generation. I won't recount them here. You can look them up. But, he's definitely a sympathetic character on and off screen.
Right.
And kind of mirrors that by the first thing he does is commending Soji on her excellent work. So that's great empathy. I like that.
Yeah, and that's what got him was Soji's empathy for the Reclaim.
Yeah, because he's one of the, as he characterizes himself, one of the no more despised people in the galaxy. He's just seen as, property or something being exploited or warehoused. I guess the Romulans are offering him something as close as they can to being acceptance. Of course, they're using him.
Absolutely, they are.
Yeah, so he must be aware of that at some level, but still, this must be important enough for him to accept being used.
Right.
I wonder what there is behind her compassion. We know she's an organic synthetic. They don't.
Right.
Well, the Romulans do. At least one aspect of them do.
Right.
Still, there's something attractive about her empathy and sympathy. I know it resonated with Hugh. And if you go back to the last episode, it resonated with Narek too. I still think of that look on his face. Perhaps maybe it was stunned that she knew Romulan and he didn't know that.
Right. Could be.
Yeah. Of course, coming soon, she knows things she doesn't even know yet. But it was terrific to see Hugh bring her into the I almost call it the playground, their seclusion, where their XBs that are of Romulan nature are being kept. It's almost something like an insane asylum or sanitarium.
Oh, absolutely. They call them disordered.
Yeah, the disordered. Oh, boy. And the chief character among them there, Ramda, we get to know. She's a foremost expert on Romulan myths, which is really exciting to me because I had my theory that I elucidated about a week ago. And I'll just give you a quick update on that here, that the Romulans are living a lie, that their origin goes way back to organic synthetics. This is my theory, that when they broke off from Vulcan and went into space, eventually all the original Vulcans died off and only the synthetics were left, or the organic synthetics who became to be known as Romulans. That's not part of this TV series, although I wish it will be. So if she's an expert on mythology, that's the kind of stories you create about your own race. And one of their stories is that we're a seafaring race of Romulans and broke unknown, established a mighty empire, and it might be one of their greatest secrets too.
Right.
A mixture between fact and fiction. We'll see.
Yep.
And so another exciting part of this meeting in the disordered room, it seems like the Borg never took an interest in the Romulans, or there was something about them when they were assimilated. Ramda was aboard a scout ship that was assimilated, and it didn't take, or something to that effect.
Right, yeah. Something happened that caused them to be disconnected from the collective.
Yeah. So my mind is racing. I'm trying to reconcile how it fits into my own mythology, my own theory.
Well, yeah, you would have to think that if the Borg had assimilated those 25 Romulans, and they were actually synthetic as well.
Yeah, even though over 1,000 years, it might have poisoned the mix. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Interesting. If my theory doesn't work out, they need to hire me.
Yeah.
I've got a great story for you. Yeah, and then we have a recollection that Loris had told us in the previous episode that they were never interested in artificial intelligence or synthetics, maybe because they reject it. It doesn't match their own mythology. But it seems hard to believe they don't have some connection to AI. I mean, computers in that day and age, there has to be an AI. How can you run something that complex? I mean, here we are trying it in the 21st century. They must be. I mean, in the 24th century and 25th century, Romulans must have something to that effect, I would guess. Otherwise, they're doing it the hard way. It seems odd that the Romulans would have nothing to offer the Borg in that sense. I mean, the Borg would know about their own AI. They would have assimilate their technology. So, that's something to think on, Steve.
Yep, because there's got to be more to it than what we've been given so far.
Yeah. So, Romney seems to be working on some type of tarot deck. Not exactly reading the future, but as she would put it, understanding the news.
Right. Yeah, I thought that was great.
Yeah.
Not mythology. I do not like that word.
Yeah. And Soji was thinking, she was pretty excited over a shared narrative framework for understanding their deep-rooted trauma and archetype. And seeing Ramda access this and work with it, she got all excited because it would provide her a window into their own past and what they were thinking. Perhaps, cure them, or at least alleviate their some type of psychosis they seem to be suffering, and provide a reason why they couldn't be assimilated the way all the other cultures were.
Right, yeah. I think Soji was just trying to find a way to actually help rehabilitate those that have been assimilated.
Right. I'm not sure I see how that can work. I mean, understanding the mythology, I don't know. I took psychology in college and grad school. And so we're used to trying to rehabilitate people, but from a historical perspective,
might stretch it a little.
Yeah, I don't know. And there's no analog to our own field of psychology. I can't think of anything by Carl Jung, who was a neo-Freudian. That would make sense. He thinks we had a shared subconscious amongst humanity. So that would go back through the ages. I guess I'll have to read up on my Carl Jung to understand it further, but it does seem interesting. Anyway, things get a little testy in there as Ramda remembers Soji from tomorrow, which is cool. And she recognizes her as an android. So,
Yeah.
That was one of the things I've been looking forward to. There's things we haven't seen, but in the teasers before the season, I knew I had seen something about, we didn't know it was Soji and Dodge. We only thought it was one person, not twins, but Ramda's character was featured in there. You are the destroyer.
Yeah.
Which I think made a lot of people think about maybe Soji is the Borg queen. I mean, that theory still hasn't been eliminated yet.
Right.
And she asked her if she's the one that dies or the one that lives, which is pretty cool. It's like talking about different sides of a coin, the yin and yang and everything else that has to do with philosophy of that nature. And she's the one that lives, as we know, by this third episode. Yeah, so far. So she calls her the destroyer. So, gosh. So it's either something, if she's a synthetic and she's a destroyer because she's recognized the roots of her own mythology and she destroyed the Romulan race by replacing it with organic synthetics, Steve.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Well, it goes way back then. That's the thread I'm following. She may not be the destroyer, but she's just like the destroyer.
Yeah, absolutely she could be.
Yeah.
And it makes a lot of sense because you have the radical Vulcans that wanted purity. They didn't want the split from Romulan, because that was one thing Spock was always going after, was the reunification of the Romulans and the Vulcans. So yeah, it's very possible the purist Vulcans knew that the Romulans were synthetic, organic types. So that would be a really deep-seated storyline that goes way back.
Way back, yeah. It's pretty exciting, if true.
Yeah.
And you know what it also means? It means Spock was wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not wrong in trying to connect two people, but ultimately he could have been wrong that these Romulans that they come to know and fear were actually the Vulcans. They weren't from centuries before.
Right.
They were the organic synthetic instead, and he never knew it.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
So we come to discover that Soji doesn't understand what she was saying. She comes up with the narratives that even Hugh looked at her sideways like, how do you know all this? And she didn't know any of the stuff either. He should have got a clue when they talked just before going in too, that, wait a minute, have you seen the file?
Right.
You know, even he hasn't. That's a little surprising to him.
Yeah, because he probably didn't have access to it.
Yeah. So she's accessing things somehow. And it's all part of somebody's plan. I can't see how it would be Bruce Maddox's plan. Is he want to really bring down civilizations?
Yeah, I don't see that would be something Maddox would be behind.
Unless he's become a mad scientist. I know we're spinning off into theories here a little early, but why would he do that? Why? And it has to be coupled with the question, why would the Romulans attack their own rescue fleet? It doesn't make sense for why would Bruce Maddox design something put out with a positronic matrix to attack and kill 100,000 people aboard Mars? What? That doesn't make sense either.
Yeah, exactly.
So who is pulling the strings? It's the Vulcan purists, Steve. Even the Vulcans don't know about it. Could it be that the Zhat Vash are that deep and dark? I mean, that's apocalyptic.
Me. Right.
Do they want to go back to that the Romulans are the only race in the galaxy? They've already got spies on Earth and they're attack Mars.
Me at all.
That's dark.
Unless, like you had kind of mentioned before, that maybe the Borg Queen is somehow behind all this.
Yeah, and they're using an end around. I mean, I had one theory that Bruce Maddox was captured by the Romulans and he's aboard the cube and nobody knows it, and their Romulans are using him. That seemed to have been dismissed with some of the information that we're going to learn later. Anyway, so Soji admits that she didn't know what she knows. She's like a rookie in baseball. Doesn't know what he knows. And so Narek decides to move a chess piece a little closer and asks her if she can keep a secret and that he may be falling in love with her. Ugh.
Yeah, big ugh.
Maybe he is a little on some level. Still, it's part of the plan.
Yeah, I think so.
And then speaking of the plan, we switch to Narek going through some dark hallway on the cube, and there's his sister waiting for him. And she's looking awfully Romulan now.
Oh, absolutely she is.
And she's pretty nasty for her sister. She can smell Soji on him, and she's like kind of carnal. Like, oh, lady.
Yeah.
But he's not phased. He didn't really phase him. It could have shaken him because she was kind of nasty.
But he got nasty right back with her.
Yeah.
Reminding her how she blew the part of the mission on Earth with Daj.
They have a penchant for leaning into each other and whispering the utmost insult they can think of at the time.
Which makes
That's
me
family.
wonder that is there something else going on there besides just being brother and sister?
Oh, boy. I'll just stick with nasty. Yeah, I'd hate to. I don't know if the Romulans have Thanksgiving. I'm starting to think not. But I'd hate to be around that table when the Romulan turkey comes out in one giant food fight. Well, I wouldn't eat a green turkey anyway, Steve.
Right. Now, wasn't it curious how Soji calls her mom to ask if Daj is all right?
Yeah. Did that woman look the same to you in that, it was on a tablet or something? Did that the same actress when I was looking at it?
Yeah, I believe it is, but the way they showed her kind of in 3D kind of made it look a little bit different than what it was when Daj was talking to her when it was strictly 2D.
Yeah, she seemed more Asian.
Right.
Back in that episode and not so in this episode. So it could be the program with whatever works as the mother.
Right.
Because I think we all agree there is no mother. She's just part of the program. And apparently whatever she says will elicit something in Soji as a program. So not only does she not know how she's accessing these memories, she's also can follow subconscious, for lack of a better word, commands from the program that put her asleep.
That was pretty interesting too. So back in the present day on Earth, JL visiting Rafi at her hostel, shall we call it?
Yeah.
Telling her about Daj and his quest to find Maddox. Now, of course, the years have clearly not been kind to Rafi as she tried to survive without a career that gave her purpose, and she's brutally honest with Picard about this, that he basically abandoned her when she needed him most, and he's only looking her up now because he needs something from her.
Ouch. That's kind of sharp.
Oh, yeah, but it's actually true.
It is true. He doesn't seem to get it, though. I'm working on a blog entry about why is Jean-Luc Picard still single?
Right.
When I go into a few theories and stuff, and part of it is he doesn't understand. He doesn't get it.
Right. And
Remember,
I've always seen that in the past that he had problems with intimate relationships, shall we say. So
yeah, he connected with plenty of women. Well, maybe this is, we'll have to talk to Gates McFadden, see what her theory is about.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's something he just doesn't get. He's overly committed to his post as leader, admiral, captain.
Right.
There's some depth of it that he doesn't understand. But he also has that sympathy and empathy when Daj first came to him. So instead of asking her who she is, the first thing he did was understand why she was distressed. So there's that aspect. He's a complicated character.
Oh, yes, he is. And I just hope that this doesn't eventually lead to his downfall.
Yeah, because he's awfully trusting of Agnes.
Right.
Too. Oh, she's an expert. Of course I want her on my ship. I saw the internet light up with her, but
Right.
we'll get to that point. Yeah.
So, of course, once again, we hear that Rafi has evidence that a high-ranking Starfleet officer conspired with the Romulans to allow the Mars attack to go ahead. And, wow.
Yeah, I don't think it's Clancy.
No.
That's pretty high ranking. And Commodore? Do we know a Commodore? Is that high ranking enough?
I think so.
Yeah, but she's still not a flag officer like an admiral, though. So you'd have to convince one of them.
Right.
As a Vulcan, her credentials would be impeccable. So she must have the ear of somebody at flag rank.
Yep.
If not the ear, then, of course, a traitor.
Right.
Also.
Of course, Jean-Luc once again refuses to believe, but despite this, Rafi does connect him with the pilot, Cristobal Rios. And the way we get introduced to him is amazing because we see Picard getting beamed up on the ship with the Next Generation theme song playing in the back.
Awesome.
And he gets to meet EMH, who looks just like Rios.
Yeah, I was thinking about that this morning. He created an alter ego of himself.
A couple of them.
Yeah. First as an English accent, and then he comes back as an Irish accented EMH. So
Right.
why? He's Spanish.
Right, yeah, which you kind of go, huh? But
I think he might have identity problems. If he actually did work in covert affairs himself, I mean, if you're always leading a double life, it would make sense to have an EMH that's your alter ego, but not exactly like you, so it can still act as your conscience. And that's what that EMH was doing a lot, too.
So, of course, the EMH takes him up to meet Rios, who's got a piece of shrapnel or something sticking out of his shoulder.
Can you get titanium in a bar fight, or is he off? We don't know what he's working at. He asks Picard if he wants a drink. So Picard turns him down, so he just turns and splashes it on his wound.
And, of course, he tells Picard to take a seat. And Jean-Luc walks by the chair and looks at it and goes, nah, better not.
Close, though.
Oh, he was very close.
Like a black hole being drawn to him with its gravity.
Right. And Picard has pretty much figured out exactly who Rios is. Starfleet through and through, because 5 minutes on his ship, he can tell that every bolt and bulkhead and everything is stored per Starfleet rules and regulation. And I'm wondering if he might have actually been part of Section 31.
Oh, wow. I wonder if he has some insight into how the Romulans have penetrated
Starfleet. Yep.
Yeah, they would know. You'd think they would know.
Yep. And who knows? Maybe
maybe that's why he. Oh, so that's why they were betrayed.
All this too.
Yeah, they got betrayed. Well, we could sense they might have been betrayed because the last captain he followed, he saw his blood and brains splattered against a bulkhead. So maybe they were led into a trap.
Right. Absolutely. Could have been
cooked up by the Romulans. Yeah, they were getting too close to something. Maybe Rios will learn something significant about his own past and betrayal.
Right.
And how deep the Romulans go. Oh, this is getting complicated, Steve.
It's got to be complicated. It can't be easy.
Nope.
Now, later on, we see Picard and Laris have a moment where they discuss how he was never really at home on the Vineyard.
Yeah, I felt bad for Laris just then.
Yeah,
I think she kind of looked at him like she's tended to him and given him a home to make sure he's safe and comfortable. And she's like, yeah, I never really thought this is a home. Like, ouch.
Yeah.
Stop breaking women's hearts, will you? You're killing me.
Exactly. And as they go inside, they get attacked by several.
It was awesome.
Yeah. Zot Vash.
Yeah. We find out Orla Brady's character, Lars, can kick, but she orders, I don't know if they're married, but Siobhan to take care of him. I'll get this, basically, and starts lead the defense of the household. The one that Jean-Luc didn't think so much of his home.
Right, exactly.
Way to go, dummy. But that was a pretty awesome scene. I liked how they had weapons planted all about there.
Yes, underneath the table. That was awesome.
That was so cool.
And they all ended up holding their own for the most part. I mean,
yeah.
I was kind of surprised with the way we had seen Picard in the first couple of episodes that, yeah, once we actually had some hand-to-hand that he had to deal with, he performed admirably.
Yeah. And none of them are spring chickens, and these guys are basically shock troopers or assassins coming in there. It says something about Jean-Luc's two Romulan friends there.
Yeah.
I know the internet's been hankering to see them go into stars, but he's already ordered them to stay home and take care of grapes.
Right. The harvest is coming.
I know. Hopefully. Sure you don't want them with you?
Right. I would personally like to have them with me. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I need all the people that can defend me that I could get.
Since they've outlawed synthetics, how about those people that work for nothing? You know, all over Earth, since there isn't money, sure, I'll take care of your grapes. Why not?
Right. Now, somehow one of the Zashvat survived.
Yeah, I think he's the one that got the bottle to the head.
Right. And we get to see Javon wants to go full Talishar on him, and Laura says, we aren't that way anymore. So,
right.
Yeah. So she's flying this Romulan captive in the face with what appears to be water, like you would a cat. And then when he doesn't give up any information, she just dicks him.
Yeah, well, he was a smart ass. He said something. I forgot to Siobhan or Jean-Luc. You know, he's like being spiteful. You have no idea. She isn't a girl. Why'd you kill her? Why'd you kill us? And he, so Lars only has so much he can deal with. Oh, that's it. You just checked one of my boxes. Pow.
Yeah. And
Talk to my guy.
I do love the way they were cutting the scenes between the cube and the vineyard in these scenes, as we learn that the Romulans think that Soji is the destroyer, because you hear that from Ramda and this captured guy basically right after each other.
Right. First, I thought, that type of storyteller could be a little off-putting, switching back and forth. I mean, everyone has an A plot and a B plot, but these guys like to go back and forth. And this particular episode worked a lot better for me in doing that. I didn't find it as jolting.
Neither did I. I thought it worked out really well.
Yeah.
Now, of course, prior to this, we see Commodore O paying a visit to Dr. Girardi.
Yeah.
I only get it for a brief second, and it's like, oh, crap, what happened?
Yeah, she has to learn. She wanted to learn firsthand what's going on. That is Commodore O. It's a little jarring. Speaking of jarring, people are bopping in and out all the time. There is no privacy, apparently, in the 24th century. If someone that just appears at your door, you don't know. You think they'd send a little message like, I'm going to be show up at any moment now.
Right.
It happened on the Borg Cube, too, when Narek's sister just pounced out of nowhere.
And she informs Picard that though she spilled the beans about his plans to Commodore O, she didn't tell her one secret, being her intention to join Picard on the quest.
So that's when the internet lit up about her being a spy.
Right.
I mean, she already met with a traitor. Vulcan is working for the Romulans, and at least they think she's a Vulcan. So is Dr. Agnes a spy now? Did they get to her? I am inclined to think not, but the internet just jumped all over that.
Oh, yeah.
And then we
Rafi.
get... Yeah, exactly. I was just about to say that's reinforced by Rafi's suspicions. Hello, are you going to vet this lady?
Yeah. Even a basic security check?
I know. Yeah, poor Jean-Luc. Oh, no, she's the expert in her field. Let her aboard. Eye roll.
Yeah. So, yeah, that empathy may come back to bite him. But they get beamed up to Rio's ship, and, of course, Picard is surprised to see Rafi there. But that, of course, happened to be Rios's sources that were telling him it's about to get a whole lot hotter down there.
Yeah, sources. Oh, we didn't touch on that Romulan Shotboss stormtrooper or whatever he is, assassin. He sprayed some goo.
Right.
Like green stuff.
On Javon, and it got on Javon.
Yeah, and I don't know, that's another mystery. When it hit Daj, she just cooked.
Right.
It was as if that spit, the green goo, was made for her to destroy her, which they shouldn't have done. That was a miscalculation, as has been noted.
On Rizzo's part.
Yeah. So, but still, when it hit Javon, started cooking his jacket like any acid would, or herbicide, which is what I theorized it might have been. To work on an organic synthetic, but not a Romulan. That was born organic synthetic centuries before.
Right.
Why didn't he light up? And then when we look at the assassin that's fallen back in a chair, he just turned to dust or whatever.
Yeah, that's got to be a suicide pill that just happens to, I guess, explode in the guy's mouth, and
the other guy cooked.
Gets some of it.
But why it burned the first assassin? We didn't see it burn this guy. He just kind of like melted or dusted.
He disintegrated.
I wonder. There has to be some reasoning behind that. I'm sure we'll learn sooner or later. If not, I'll just make one up.
Well, shall we get into some Easter eggs and theories that we've already kind of discussed?
Yeah, we've already swept through. Hope everyone's writing this down. If you haven't watched the Next Generation's I, Borg episode, you really should go ahead and do that, because the end is the beginning, which is this episode quietly reintroduces Hugh, played by Jonathan Del Arco. He does look different. The last time we saw him as a Borg, he had that rather grayish appearance, the pallor of a Borg with tubes going in and out, and of course all the implants and the body suit armor.
Right.
So yeah, he looks a lot different. He just has that scarring where the implants had been removed. I don't think we ever saw that or any indication that because he was in, they saw that he was starting to start his own society that was removed from the Borg when.
Right, but he hadn't completely gotten all the implants taken out.
Right. That was a different episode, not I Borg, but later on, where we saw Data's brother, who's Lore, right?
Right.
It had something to do with that, too.
Yep.
Yeah, so there's a lot of material to catch up with, but it's definitely worth it.
Yes.
Speaking of researching, Rios' reading material, The Tragic Sense of Life, comes from the Spanish writer Miguel de Unamuno y Hugo. And it was published in 1912, and it lays out a philosophy that he arrived at trying out the era's prominent movements. And as it's understood, death makes life tragic, but it's admirable to seek the sort of wisdom that recognizes but supersedes this tragedy. I've looked into it too, and it seems that he defines that you can't be living life unless you're suffering from it, which is tragic. Right. I mean, it's admirable that you learn something, but it is tragic. It seems to me a rather negative philosophy, Steve.
Yeah, it really is.
And we can look to his getting a chunk of titanium stuck in his shoulder. He just basically wants to yank it out, leave it as it is, because he wants to learn from that suffering. He wants to learn from that tragedy. And the only way he's going to get, I guess, some sort of enlightenment is to suffer. What do you think of that?
It's a very interesting way to live life, that's for sure. But
yeah,
it kind of makes sense for him because we didn't touch on his second encounter with not the EMH, but the RMH, the repair maintenance.
The Irishman.
Yeah, who is basically just going gaga, fangirling over Picard being there. But Rios is not having any of it. And he does mention that, yeah, he saw his captain splattered all over the bulkhead. So kind of guess that makes sense that Rios would kind of try to take that approach just simply because, like, Picard really hasn't come to grips with Data's death, that I don't think Rios has come to grips with his former captain's death.
Yeah, so we have an analog here. We have the hologram projection that's his alter ego that's a lot more cheerful than he is.
Oh, both of them are.
Yeah. And neither of these EMHs or RMHs can understand why Rios is so negative, I guess. And Rios just wants to suffer while they're trying to see him as alter egos. Look on the bright side of life, which, Steve, is what Raffi was to Picard when they had that working relationship, when they served together. She was super upbeat. Even when she found out that there isn't going to be rescue, she says, well, we'll find a way.
Right.
We'll just do it ourselves.
Possibility to come up with a solution for.
And neither of these guys can see it. Yet both of these, the hologram projection and Raffi are trying to tell them, we can do it. But they don't listen.
Right.
That's odd.
Yes. Very odd, and might end up causing more trouble than we can imagine between these two before this season is over with.
Well, I think that's worth keeping track of.
I definitely agree with that.
Okay. Everyone else there, keep track of it with us.
Yes. Now, we do have some feedback. Once again, our friend Fred from the Netherlands has provided us some feedback. So let's take a listen.
Hello, Steve and Dave. This is Fred from the Netherlands with some feedback for Star Trek Picard Season 1, Episode 3. First off, I still have some remarks about last week's episode because I was too late to send in feedback. I did create an audio file, but it was not included. Episode 2, I think it's a 6 or a 7 as a grade, because I found it a blabber episode, talking, and my wife also agreed on that. And actually I fell asleep watching this episode, but that is perhaps just me being very tired. I really have to rewatch, and perhaps then also the feedback gets better. I think it's a brilliant idea that Dash and her twin sister were made from some positronic neural cell of Data. If you would compare this to DNA, well, potentially you could reconstruct a person completely from just one cell, because one human cell contains all the DNA. Well, if you do this in a positronic way, that could be the basis of creation, a kind of clone of Data. Some people on social media suggested that the growth speed of Dash and her sister could be accelerated somehow because, well, the 14 years is not enough for this Dash, which is clearly older than the 14 years. But I don't think these androids did grow at all. And we get some indication that they are really constructed and they had put memories, Agnes says that, into their minds. And probably the mother is not a real mother, but just something in her mind or some kind of a connection to some computer, and there is no real mom and no real growing up. How will these androids grow up anyhow? We also saw that in Lal. Lal was Data's daughter, but she was in size an adult person. She had to grow in her mind, but not in her size. I think it's still a mystery why Data, when he painted his daughter about 3 years after Lal died as Dash, why didn't he paint Lal? And did Maddox create Dash and her twin sister from Data's painting? So, something strange there. And I really wonder if Maddox, as some people suggested, will play the role as the so-called father of these two girls. And we see Soji is so-called fully sexual functional, but we already knew that from Data as well. As I remember well, he had a sexual relation with Tasha Yar, and that's why she always played a special role in his life. Okay, about this episode 3. Let's start with Commander O. Did she walk out of the Blues Brothers or Men in Black? Really ridiculous with these sunglasses. And did I see a change in her ears? Did they get pointier, more Romulan instead of Vulcan? What I liked a lot was the ears getting pointier in Narissa Rizzo. I actually really wonder if that is her Romulan name. But she looks quite stunning in her very nice black leather outfit. She reminds me, by the way, of the elf warrior Turiel in The Hobbit, played by Evangeline Lilly. But Rizzo is more wicked. If we see what Shiban and Laris can do, I just don't understand why they don't go with Picard, why they stay on the vineyard. Are these grapes really so important? Isn't protecting this old guy not more important? Well, they really showed they can fight, but perhaps they will join in a later phase. I liked a lot that we finally got a emergency medical hologram doctor back in a Star Trek series. Very nice, and even a cloned one, which opens, of course, my Orphan Black heart. On the other hand, the EMH on Voyager was also a physical copy of its creator, Dr. Zimmerman. I liked a lot that ship. It really looks nice on the inside and the outside. And in the last scene where Picard says engage, of course we all expected that, but it was still nice. I really liked the interaction between Jean-Luc and Raffi. Although the first scene, the opening scene, there the acting of both Sir Patrick and Michelle Hunt was not 100%. I had some feelings of a little overacting again there. And another thing I'm questioning is Soji really falling for Nerix? I think I'm falling in love with you. Although his sister did warn him about don't fall in love, so it could be true. Okay, that was all for this time. Greets, Fred from the Netherlands.
Well, thanks again, Fred, for your feedback. I will double check what got published on last week's episode to figure out why your feedback wasn't included. But yeah, it's interesting that I knew you would bring up be the genetics expert that you are and mention that, yes, it's very possible that if they could use a single positronic neuron to create Daj and Soji from Data, that Yeah, we could take one cell of a human and clone them. So you got your life's work and your favorite subject on cloning in feedback in one in one episode. That's pretty awesome. And yeah,
I think
the sunglasses were a bit much for O. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, that didn't work too well.
I was kind of thinking probably
I think I have
Men in Black, and she was about to
yeah,
hit Gerard
I was thinking
with
of
the memory wipe.
I was thinking of the Big O. She's gonna break into song. As I was listening to Fred, and Fred, don't you dare fall asleep on an episode again. We'll pull your Star Trek geek card. You were talking. Fred was yes, he was tired. He was brought up about Data's daughter's painting, and he cited 3 years after what was it?
After Law had
Yes, and how we got that face. I think I have a reason behind the face. It's an implanted memory. Somebody got into Data's coding and put that there. Much the same way they got into Soji coding, and she revealed all that knowledge of the Romulans and the Borg that she didn't know she had because somebody put it there.
Huh.
Huh.
Yeah, I like that.
Mm-hmm. And it could have been the same person. Well, obviously, it's the same person that designed Soji and Daj, introduced that programming into Data.
Oh, now this one's
So he
going to
could-
really blow your mind.
Okay.
Wesley Crusher from the future with the Traveler comes back and implants that into Data.
Or is Q.
Right. Or it's Q. One of the two.
I think more it's like Bruce Maddox did it.
More than
In all his
likely.
research and work, he somehow accessed Data and put what he was working on way back then with Soji and Daj. And Data just thought it was an original idea. He didn't realize he'd been reprogrammed.
Right, absolutely. That makes more sense, but that would be, my theory would be a way to bring in a couple of more
Oh, yeah.
possible actors from the series into this one.
Yeah.
Well, Fred, we really do appreciate your thoughts. Glad you got to see a cloned RMH. And yeah, I thought the ship looked pretty good as well. I mean, it still had some sharp lines, but they didn't seem quite as sharp as the ones there on Mars.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. When I looked at it briefly, it looked as though it can come apart, too. Like something can, like a saucer separation from the main body of a starship. I was wondering if something actually pulls off the top of that and maybe acts as the shuttle. We'll find out. Look, I mean, I don't know why you need a shuttle if you can beam everywhere.
True.
You show up at someone's door and there's a Romulan disruptor there. Well, I'm glad you showed up, Dr. Agnes, and you know how to use a disruptor. And she just finds out there's no stun setting on it. There's no privacy in the future.
No, not at all. And the acting between Jean-Luc and Rafi in the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
I think it was just that Picard was so passionate about this mission, and he really felt like they had all the answers that Starfleet would question.
Yeah.
And that he had to actually play his resignation card that he just knew in the bottom of his heart they would not accept.
Yeah. He didn't realize they've been reprogrammed, in a sense.
Exactly. And of course, Rafi at that point in time was the eternal optimist.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so,
He crushed her.
just
Yeah.
completely crushes her. And we see that even after 14 years, it's completely crushed her.
Yeah.
So I think we kind of get that when we get back to the present, that we really see how damaged Rafi is by Jean-Luc's, I won't say ignorance to what she was going through, but that's kind of what it was. I mean, he got so involved in his own disdain that he completely forgot that Rafi's life had been completely turned upside down as well.
And to some degree, Rios, too.
Yeah.
They've all been affected. We don't know exactly his story. All these people have damaged past that have changed their future. And I don't know how something's going to have to give to reconcile it for all these people, including the Institute of the Federation and Starfleet itself. How can they be cured? Something's going to have to find the root cause, Steve, the root cause.
Yep. Got to get to the root. Well, Fred, thank you once again for your feedback. And like I said, I will double check episode 2, find out what happened, and make sure that doesn't happen again.
Okay.
So we'd love to hear your thoughts on each and every episode of this season, and looking forward to interacting with you on social media. How can the fans interact with us, Dave?
You can contact us through www.fangirlzone.com and click on the contact link where you will find several ways to contact us via email and through social media. And on Twitter, of course, it's Sawyer Steve or the Real ID Dave. And you can check out my blog on Blogger through Google. It's Interdimensional Dave. And I'll be coming up with a new post soon about why Picard is still single. And it touches briefly on this episode, too.
All right. Can't wait to read that one. So please review.
It'll be a first.
Yeah, please review and rate us on iTunes. Ratings and reviews help other fans of the show find us, as there are a lot of Star Trek Picard podcasts out there. Tell your friends, and we do hope you're enjoying our podcast. And don't forget to check out the other great Fangirl Zone podcasts.
4th episode is on February 13th, and it's titled Absolute Candor. And Fred should be excited because we're going to look at a character, you saw the teaser, that looks just like an elf from Lord of the Rings with a sword. So he should really be excited about that. So until then, remember.
This is Chief Engineer Steve. I'm not in the habit of consulting lawyers before I do what needs to be done.
Well, I'll have to introduce you to my lawyer, Steve.
Yes.
Brown and Sticky. Brown and Sticky are the best. This is Redshirt Dave, and I got some good news. My friends, I didn't know they were my friends, have invited me down to the holodeck for target practice. So I'm going to put on a new red shirt, and I'll be running right down to meet them. I hope it's fun.